one of the most recognizable characters in Nintendo history. He's been the star of many different games on multiple consoles with their colorful art style, addicting gameplay, and signature ability to suck up enemies and steal their powers. So to celebrate his fame, I'm making a list of top 10 favorite Kirby games. Enjoy the show, everyone! Starting out the list, we have the first time I ever got a Kirby game on launch date, Kirby Triple Deluxe. This game does a great job at pushing the 3DS's capabilities. I mean, taking certain stars into the background is really fun. Enemies can go in and out of the background, there's a cannon that hits foes in the other section of the course, and a giant beam that takes out enemies from both where you are and in the background. You thought you were safe, enemies? Guess again! Also, Triple Deluxe has keychains scattered throughout the levels with sprites from previous Kirby games. And the minigames are the most addicting minigames in the Kirby series for me, especially Kirby Fighters and DDD Drum Dash. Plus, it introduces awesome abilities like the Bell and Beetle. And of course, we have Hypernova. While I prefer the Ultra abilities, the Hypernova is still fun to use because of all the stuff you can do with it, like getting the Sunstones and solving puzzles, giving more reasons as to why it's very fun. But it lands at number 10 because it doesn't have enough mini-bosses, and it doesn't have as many ways of using ability to solve puzzles. But when it does really good at that. If you're looking for a fun Kirby game with 3D capabilities, I highly recommend Triple Deluxe. Yep, Kirby Superstar Ultra. I don't need to play the original since I have Superstar Ultra, which has much nicer graphics than its Super Nintendo counterpart. Some cutscenes are rendered in CGI, and holy heck, extra stuff. It was cool that we got to play a lot of different stories in Superstar, but in Superstar Ultra, you have more. Like in Kirby Superstar, when you get an ability, you use multiple different moves with them. I know that's common in modern Kirby games, but this is a remake of the Super Nintendo Superstar game, which was the game that introduced that, and the addition of guarding and helpers can save you a lot of times. A lot of Superstar feels short and sweet, and the fast movement overall combined with the worlds that feel just long enough to make the player feel like they're quickly experiencing new things without any filler. Also, Kirby's sprite looks a lot better than it did in Superstar. It contains a remake of the original Kirby's Dream Land, as well as a massive cave exploration and an infiltration of a giant plane. Superstar was already a very iconic Kirby game, but I think this is almost everything better. Did I mention it's portable? That's certainly another advantage if you ask me. Immediately makes me like it more. We've had many 3D open world Mario games and a 3D open world Donkey Kong game, so why not one for Kirby? Oh well. For now, I guess the closest we have to one will be Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. Because of how despite being a side-scroller, the screen will sometimes turn left and right. I don't really know how to explain what I mean, so you'll just have to look and you'll see. Not even Return to Dreamland or Triple Deluxe have this. Aside from that, the graphics are colorful even for Kirby standards. And I like that you can be helped by other characters from the series such as King Dedede, Waddle Dee, Adeline, and Ribbon. The two coolest to use for me are probably King Dedede and Waddle Dee. King Dedede will use his hammer to break open walls, and Waddle Dee will do some special objectives, such as riding in minecarts and other vehicles. Another plus is that Kirby has given the ability to combine abilities. Combine Bombs and Cutter for exploding ninja stars, Burning End Cutter for a flame sword, Ice and Bomb for a walking exploding snowman, you name it. All of these abilities are awesome. Okay, almost all of them. If you combine two of the same abilities together, you'll get even cooler versions of them. The only other Kirby game I remember doing this is Squeak Squad, which I'll get to later. Kirby 64 is a must-have for Kirby fans. How could I put Return to Dreamland this low on the list? There's no real reason aside from me just liking the other games even more. I have nothing against Return to Dreamland, it's still a very great game. After 7 whole years of having Kirby games that either didn't play out like normal Kirby games or didn't bring much to the table, Kirby's Return to Dreamland came out and Kirby fans everywhere loved it, and it's no secret as to why. As I said before, I prefer the Ultra abilities over the Hypernova because there are multiple Ultra abilities on only one type of Hypernova, and using them feels even more satisfying. It may not have as many capabilities as the Hypernova, but there are still a lot of really clever things. Ultra Beam in order to send a giant ball of light around, Fire to send a flaming dragon through obstacles, ice to finish a giant snowman, and a massive sword with the strength to cut a volcano in half. The music isn't as memorable as in other Kirby games, but the ones that do stick out are awesome to listen to. Especially Frosty Area, the Ultra Ability theme, and the final boss theme. Seriously, why didn't we get a Return to Dreamland stage in Smash 4? Return to Dreamland is one of many examples why going back to your roots can really work. Ordinarily, I start with the first game in the franchise and move along, but the first Kirby game I got was Nightmare in Dreamland. Superstar Ultra was already more advanced than Superstar, and Nightmare in Dreamland, being a Kirby's Adventure remake, makes Kirby's Adventure's graphics look even more like mud. The atmosphere is a lot prettier than it was in the original because the Game Boy Advance isn't as limited as the NES, and I much prefer this game's music as it was filled with some of the most nostalgic music in any game I've ever played, and I feel it sounded much better than the original game's music did. Songs like Flying Boat, Rainbow Resort, and Vegetable Valley, just to name a few. In fact, I actually find the Nightmare in Dreamland remixes even more nostalgic than their 8-bit counterparts. Mainly since this was my first Kirby game after all. They bring back loads of memories of Nightmare in Dreamland. Adventure was already the game that brought in copy abilities to the table. When you combine that with better capabilities and more, you have an adventure that's even more fun. No pun intended. And finding secret switches to unlock areas like coliseums and minigames. Those are also fun aspects I enjoy. This is what pretty much defines Kirby for me. If you want to play one Kirby game to know how they are, I'd recommend Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland. Yes, I have the guts to admit it. I like Squeak Squad this much. I can't really explain why, it's just in my mind a slightly more enjoyable experience. On a technical scale, Superstar Ultra and Crystal Stars are better, but I just get a bigger kick out of Squeak Squad. Maybe it's because of the scenery? Yeah, that could be it. I think everything looks absolutely beautiful in Squeak Squad, notably in Vocal Volcano. We have the Squeaks, which are really cool in the group. A speedy member, a tough member, a super intelligent mastermind, and the leader. One thing I love is how your abilities can be used with the environment, like cutting down grass and electrifying a cloud to use as a platform. Take notes, Triple Deluxe. On top of that, you can store items and bubbles on the bottom of the screen, so you'll be able to select them at any time. And like I said in an earlier entry on the list, items like the sword can be mixed with some of the elemental abilities to get stuff like the fire sword and ice sword. You can also use the wheel ability on certain things to give it an ice or fire effect. Sure, there aren't as many mixed abilities as there are in Kirby 64, but this game is a bit more story driven, and your combined abilities can do more. Utterly brilliant. Kirby Canvas Curse was a decent game, but it felt like it had a lot of missed opportunities. It was kind of saddening, actually. But then we got Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, and oh my gosh, is this game incredible. You might find it odd that it's this high, but it just is. For one, the claymation style is actually kinda nice. If you think this game is for little kiddies because of the art style, let me ask you this. Would a little kid have an easy time controlling Kirby in a game where you draw lines to control Kirby instead of using the control pad like normal? I thought not. It's a more complicated way of controlling Kirby for reasons I previously explained. They aren't too bad after a while. This is what makes Rainbow Curse a good challenge without being too annoying. Not to mention how I think the drawing line looks a bit prettier than the one in Canvas Curse. One flaw I found in the previous game was how the majority of the music was nothing more than mere remixes of past Kirby games. But in Rainbow Curse, there are more original music tracks. I know they have sections where there are small bits of the main theme, but I don't care. Like I was saying, it does have remixes of earlier Kirby songs, but most of them are made specifically for sound test. It may not have copy abilities like Canvas Curse, but it gives you the ability to transform into a tank, a rocket, and a submarine. If you like Canvas Curse, then I recommend Rainbow Curse. While I was making this list, I was debating what I like better, Nightmare in Dreamland or Amazing Mirror. I eventually settled on Amazing Mirror because even though Nightmare in Dreamland has more nostalgia for me, Amazing Mirror has more stuff you can do. So much that I eventually decided that Amazing Mirror should be number 3. The backgrounds are even nicer than in Nightmare in Dreamland, and just like in Superstar and Superstar Ultra, you get multiple different moves with each ability you get. Instead of playing linear levels consecutively like in most Kirby games, Kirby is thrown into an open world with all 9 of the levels linked together, similar to a Metroid game, making for so much exploration. Does the wide open world sound irritating to you? You have a map with you, so you don't have much to worry about. Annoyed with the long backtracking? Never fear, for there are doors that will warp you to the main hub area, so if you're lost, don't feel bad about it. Look for a certain door and take it to the world you want to go to. That is what puts Amazing Mirror this high on the list. It's in my mind the best Kirby's ever been on a handheld system. Oh, and also 3 other Kirbys helping you sometimes. That's also there. What? Kirby's Air Ride is as high as number 2? Yes, I happen to like Air Ride. Why? Because it's a blast. If you thought the Kirby's Air Grind minigame was fun, imagine racing on Warp Stars having an entire game based off it. In 3D! The landscape is beautiful, especially the water. I know I said that a lot in the list, but I mean it this time. It still feels like a Kirby game as you gain powers from enemies. How many racing games do you play where you're able to glide? Okay, let me rephrase that. How many racing games do you play where you're able to glide after every jump? And the grind rails are a joy to ride. The city trial is one of the single most addicting modes I've seen. In it, you're supposed to go around and get power-ups for the upcoming minigame or race. You freely roam around a city, and exploring it is a ton of fun, especially the underground portions and going very high into the air. Sometimes there will be events in the city trial, like speed going out of control, giant flaming meteors falling from the sky, or a thick fog to give off a mysterious presence. This is easily my favorite racing game on the GameCube, and up there with some of my favorite racing games of all time. But the question is, what Kirby game do I like more than Kirby's Air Ride? Kirby's Epic Yarn. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Are you questioning why I love Kirby's Epic Yarn this much despite its faults? Well, let me look at those faults. The fact that it doesn't play out like a Kirby game? Not enough to make me hate a game. Your inability to die? Well, I had so much fun that for most of the time, I barely noticed that you couldn't die in it. Besides, if you want a challenge, try making it through the levels without losing too many beads to get a gold rank. The fact that you can't steal powers? I'll admit that was weird, but they were replaced by transformations, and they're a good enough replacement for me. Turning into a tank, a dolphin, a jeep, a mole tank, and when Kirby changes form when using some moves, he'll also change into a sled, car, weight, snake, parachute, etc. The levels are so creative that they would make Donkey Kong Country Returns proud, where you pull on string to condense areas, use zippers to change certain sections, and go behind the scenery. This could have been a perfect Smash 4 stage. The art style is one of the greatest I've seen in any game ever. Who knew that Yarn could be so beautiful to look at? Even for a Kirby game, there's no way I can look down on the graphics. As without a doubt the most relaxing source of soundtrack I've heard in a video game. With songs like Rainbow Falls, Fountain Gardens, and every song that plays in Snowland, I can't help but find them incredibly soothing. And it truly does live up to its name, Kirby's Epic Yarn. I am Meta537 the second, and while some may not agree with this choice, Kirby's Epic Yarn is my favorite Kirby game.